veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
The moment you go from, hey, we're not playing to win or compete, to we're playing for a draft pick, their motivation and their commitment and their credibility in the organization is shot. And for us, when you talk about the need to be a competitor, the need to build a winning program, the need to come in and day out and do the things that we need to do, we can't compromise that.
There he is, friend of the show, Gerson Rosas. It's Mackey and Judd here. We gave you the instant live emergency episode last night. If you missed it, you can find it on the Mackey and Judd podcast feed and on the Score North YouTube channel. But let's bring him in. He is the host of the appropriately named Dane Moore NBA podcast, and he is the ringleader of the weirdest team ever movement, Dane Moore. Welcome to the show, sir.
What's up, guys? How are you?
So you threw a gathering last night for that lottery debacle.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, it was to come watch the lottery happen, which had only 27% chance of the Wolves keeping their pick. And I don't know. I thought Britt and I were going to do a podcast afterwards. Thought maybe like 50, maybe 100 people would come, and it was like 500 Timberwolves fans just like lined up out the door, gathered. I mean, you guys know what it's like. Like, there's never Timberwolves events here, really, right? Yeah. You got these Vikings watch parties and Twin stuff, and it's predominantly logical because those teams win more than the Timberwolves historically have. But I mean, I've always felt like I've known that there is a quite large like closet community of Timberwolves fans out there who do care because they love basketball, and this is the local team. Even if they're not winning, people still do care about them and like to think about what the next good Timberwolves team does look like.
Yeah, like Phil.
Phil's
the poster child of Wolves, of unfounded optimism about the Wolves because someday something good might happen again.
I've told these guys, I mean, like at the, KG gets traded 2007, and I used my credential, and I was at K-Fan for a few years during those, like the Kurt Rambis, like the Randy Whitman, Kurt Rambis, just the darkest of days. And I was like, I want to be here. I want to feel and watch the worst of this so that I can ride that roller coaster back up. And I think the roller coaster has gone back up like once, maybe once and a half. If you count the time where they almost finished 500 with Rubio and Kevin Love, like they had like
40 and 42. Yeah.
They had like the fifth best point differential in the NBA, and they finished under 500 because they are the weirdest team ever, of course.
They are. Phil, I'm kind of questioning your move out to Seattle here, trying to get ahead of things. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, I've told these guys, listen, like
exactly right.
I want the Wolves to stay in Minnesota, and I would love to see some sort of reincarnation of the Sonics. And there's also, like, if you're wondering, they hate Alex Rodriguez out here, so that can be one of two things. Either he wants to make it right, or he knows, they hate me. I'm going to stay away and just keep the team in Minnesota.
New building. I mean, it's just all falling together perfectly. And Phil's like, I know nothing about this thing. I just moved. I know nothing about this. I haven't talked to anybody.
So Dane, let's dive in. So we dove into this last night, and I'll just give you. I think the national perspective has been that the Warriors fleeced the Wolves on that trade, D'Angelo Wiggins. And now that we know what the final piece of the puzzle is, it winds up being Andrew Wiggins and the number 7 overall pick for D'Angelo Russell. And
let me cut in. And the number 36 pick in the second round here, too. Like the Wolves don't have a second round pick either. And that sounds like nothing, but the Warriors traded that number 36 pick for Kelly Oubre, who's like a pretty decent player, too. So it was a lot. It was a lot to give up.
And I get from a national perspective why it's a lot, and I get on paper that it looks like a lot. And I think my comeback to that would be number one. I think D'Lo is a better player and fit for what the Wolves have been trying to do and are going to try to do next year than Wiggins. And also, it's really hard to sit here and say, well, look what the Warriors unlocked to some extent with Wiggins. Well, yeah, that's 'cause they're the Warriors, and Steph and Draymond, like Wiggins can sort of slide in.
Can we also talk about like what? I don't know if people were watching the Warriors. What got unlocked in Andrew Wiggins? That looks exactly like the same dude I watched play for 6 years here. Now, was there a little bit more consistent engagement defensively? Sure, but it was kind of similar to the prior season when he was here. Like, he didn't, as he got older, even in Minnesota, he started trying on defense a little bit more consistently. The offensive game has always been the same with him. So, I mean, I'm not coming out here being like, woo, Gerson won that trade. He did it.
100%. Yep.
But the idea to me is insane that Andrew Wiggins and D'Angelo Russell are similar level players.
Yep.
That's
and you
just,
can't, dude, and it was a non-start. Like, you couldn't keep Wiggins on this team, asking him to be essentially the man, right? Like, it was like him and Towns were supposed to be the one and the two. Like, he's not a one or a two in terms of pecking order.
Probably
It was a non-starter for him to be on this team anymore, and so you were going to have to swallow hard. You can live with it. By the way, number 7 overall picks, sometimes they're Steph Curry, and I get that. A lot more often, they are Randy Foye and Bismack Biyombo. So I'm just saying, like, the number 7 overall pick in the NFL draft is almost a guaranteed Pro Bowler. In the NBA, it's still very much hit or miss and a crapshoot, even in a deep draft. So I can live with this now that this is the final result.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like the necessary penance to pay to get off of Rosa's inherited. He inherited 2 things. He inherited a young star player with 5 years left on a good contract in Karl Anthony Towns. He also inherited Andrew Wiggins on an awful contract. He inherited Gorgie Jang on an awful contract, and he inherited Jeff Teague on an awful contract. Multiple years left on all of them. So if the 4 of us were to take over the Timberwolves, I mean, we would need to have put together a plan to get rid of all of those guys in 2 years. Now, I don't know. Are there better twists and turns to have taken? Like, Teague was traded for Allen Crabbe. That didn't really make sense. Gorgie Jang kind of lingered, and then they got James Johnson. What really came for? Like, maybe you can't say Gerson was perfect on all of that stuff, but they did get a legit player back from all that salary crap that they had. And D'Angelo Russell is a legitimate starting point guard in the NBA. And then they had to pay this pick. The pick was too much. It's still too much. The multiple picks, the second round pick as well. But he didn't have a lot of time to kind of get off of a lot of stuff. And the one thing I think you can credit him on is he did get rid of all of it and didn't totally derail everything. At least now you're sitting in a place where you have Cat, you have a D'Lo, where that seems to work together. They effectively tanked the first season. You get Anthony Edwards. You started building a little bit of something next year. Like, the Andrew Wiggins, D'Angelo Russell trade is not like the thing that's headlining Gerson Rosa's LinkedIn page. But what is this idea that, we're moving in the right direction. And I think that's pretty hard to argue. Now, let's get to the summer. Like, you got to start putting stuff together, because if you just roll out these 12 dudes that you finished last season with, like, you're not making the playoffs. That team's not good enough. So it's time for Gerson Rosa. It's time for Sasha and Gupta, for that front office to put it together. Like, it's been 2 years. Let's make the playoffs.
So, Dane, what does, in your mind, no picks in the draft mean for the franchise, and how much does it come back and bite them in the butt too? And I think this is a relatively important part of the conversation from Gerson and what he's done so far. The Jarrett Culver pick, which clearly has not worked, and I don't know that Culver is going to work. I don't know that he can shoot. So when you combine the fact that Culver looks like a swing and a miss with his pick, and then the fact that they're not going to have a pick in this draft, and yes, they got Ant last year. When you put the stew of draft picks together, how does it come out in your mind?
I do think the stew of draft picks comes out positive, and that's because you start mixing in a Naz Reid, who's that's an undrafted player, but you got him on draft night. That was one of those things where he would have been a second round pick, but you got the kind of we're going to give you a 4-year deal sort of thing. Say you want to come to Minnesota, so they finagled that well. Jalen Noel looks like a bench player that they got out of that. And then obviously Jaden McDaniels. Like, those are three things they hit on pretty well that were in spots and not really hit on things well, right? And like, you give him some credit for Ant. He had the number 1 overall pick. Like, you could only mess that up situation. So overall, I think the draft picks are good, with Culver being an absolute disaster. That's done. That's done. Like, he's not going to play if he's still on the team. He wasn't playing. They were the worst team in the league. Like, at the end of the season, that Jarrett Culver wasn't in the rotation.
So he's really bad. He's really, really bad.
The odds of him making a 3-pointer are the same odds the Wolves had of moving up in the lottery last night.
I saw that. That was great.
Accurate. So that's a bad pick. That was a bad pick.
I mean, Naz Reid. Yeah, it's very rare that you find a guy like Naz Reid. Like in the NBA, in the NFL, you find Adam Thielens once in a while go undrafted. In the NBA, it's rare to find second rounders that are going to be regular rotation guys. I mean, there's a small handful every single year, and so I'm with you on. I mean, Jarrett Culver was definitely a huge whiff. So, what are the best avenues now? I mean, trading. I mean, obviously they could trade and maybe pick up some sort of a first or second round pick, but assuming that they don't have any meaningful draft picks this year, it's trades. It's trades, and maybe is there a mid-level exception or something? Like, what are their avenues, Dane?
So their plan since they took over was, all right, we're in Minnesota. Nobody's signing here. The way, when that's your reality, to get good players is to trade for them, because you then essentially force their hand to come here. That was the D'Angelo Russell situation, right? Like, D'Lo chose to live in San Francisco over Minneapolis when he was a free agent. And so, they went and forced him. They said, all right, we'll pay Andrew Wiggins in this pick, and we'll force D'Angelo Russell to come here. And then, D'Lo's already gotten paid. Like, a player's going to go, they're going to do that. And it's the same thing, with Malik Beasley. The books are filled out. Wiggins, or Rubio, all those guys, Hernan Gomez. Like, those guys weren't going to outright just get in free agency and be like, I want to come to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So you go and kind of force their hand to come here. And that was intentional on their part. The books are stuffed full all the way up to the luxury tax right now, which on the surface kind of looks bad because it's not a good team. But those are also like chips to trade in that they are salaries to match in deals. And particularly in the NBA, that's a pretty important part of the calculation. So I respect that strategy from this front office of like, hey, we're being real about this. The best way for us to get good players is we're going to eventually need to grow guys up on our team, and then trade them for better players. And if we got to attach draft picks to them, like the number 7 pick, we got to do that. But it's this whole idea of like asset plays, right? Get somebody in, turn them into something like Malik Beasley, maybe trade them again for somebody who's even better than Malik Beasley. People are going to talk about Ben Simmons, John Collins, those type of guys. I think that's the idea. So they're a thorough front office, man. They've got Sasha Bupa's got spreadsheets on every single team of all these different ideas and iterations of trades, and they're going to try and make those good moves.
Reckless speculation time, my man, because you brought his name up.
Let's go.
So let's go down the path.
Speculation.
Ben Simmons, who I think ultimately, probably at this point in his life and career, has to be moved by the Sixers. Odds that he comes here, and your thoughts on the good and the bad, which as I've told Phil, the bad I think is that he is a mentally broke player. When games matter most, he just can't shoot. In fact, he has now proven, I think, in this last playoff round that the Sixers lost, he's afraid to shoot. But great defensive player and a lot of skills.
Little Rick Ankeely, right?
I said Steve Sachs, Knobloch, and Keel's perfect. Yes, yeah. He has a mental block that he is afraid now to shoot the basketball because he knows he's going to miss.
Have you guys ever seen? I think this was a playoff of, was it Mackey Sasser was the catcher with the
Yips lobbed the ball
for the Mets.
Yeah.
And the sequel to Major League 2, and Rube Baker was the catcher in the movie Major League 2, and he couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher, and so he started looking at adult magazines and thinking about the magazines, and it cleared his head, and he could throw. Maybe that's what we need for Ben Simmons, man. Just something else to think about.
Your son goes to the sex world and comes back with a stockpile of magazines for Ben Simmons. Hey, here you go.
So I think I'm going to disagree with you, Judd. I think that Ben Simmons is currently mentally unable to do it. And we saw that in that series. And you could argue that, when they get to the second round again next year, he's going to hit that same mental block.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is I've watched a ton of basketball games of Ben Simmons where he has not had that mental block. He's had a choice to not shoot. Like, that's always been a choice, but that's when they're winning too. When they're playing well, he's just never been a shooter. He shoots with the wrong hand. He can't do it. I actually kind of commend him for being like real about his shortcomings. It's like, yeah, don't be, how many Timberwolves players have we had who like think they can shoot and don't, and you're like, it'd be better if you just probably pass that one inside, So
I mean, there's speculation that he literally is shooting with the wrong hand, like that he's right-handed and everything. It's like Declan's golfing. Like Declan's probably a left-handed golfer.
I'm probably left-handed golfer, man. That'll break the 120. I should just switch and go lefty.
See, if Declan does it, then Ben has to do it. No, I think what people have to understand from a Wolves standpoint is like, whatever, he can be brain broken, but you know what? It will help Karl Anthony Towns defensively. The best thing you can do for Cat, just in the NBA right now, when you have your center, the best thing you can do for your center defensively, if you want to make them better, is control the point of attack. Have an elite perimeter defender to put on the other team's elite creator. Contain the ball. Think about all the times we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years where Cat just looks lost defensively in a pick and roll. There's some guy barreling down to him. He overextends out to Trae Young or to James Harden, then it's a lob to Clint Capella dunk. That was the whole playoff series. They lost it just like that. And it's meme after meme. Cat can't defend. And it's kind of true, but really it starts at the point of attack. Because who's the guy out there? Who's guarding the point guard? Jared Bayless? Like Tyus Jones? You know what I mean? It's like if there's nobody there to control the point of attack, the Wolves system, when they drop their center back to the rim, is going to be a disaster because now Cat has to guard the ball that's coming at him, and he's got to guard the lob, and he's not good at that. So if you bring in the best perimeter defender in the league, Ben Simmons is the best perimeter defender in the league, even though, Judd, you're better at shooting free throws than he is.
That's not true.
Let's not
go too far.
You're close. There is some YouTube evidence that suggests otherwise of Judd's
Speaking of mental
shot,
blocks, let's not go too far. he at least has a form to a bad shot.
You know what? Do you understand what I'm saying though? Defensively,
No, it makes perfect sense.
It would be. It's just a matter of what do you got to give up for him, and we have no idea what the discount of that is now. I mean, I'm seeing some real dumb stuff where people are basically just like, oh, here's the bottom 4 guys on the Timberwolves. Let's throw Culver, Wancho, and them.
No,
like I mean,
it's D'Lo. In fact, let me. All right. I'm gonna throw 2 things out to Dane here, and both of them are presented by our friends at Federated because the Wolves need some insurance defensively at the top of the key. They need some insurance along the perimeter. Maybe Ben can provide that. If your business is looking for insurance, Federated is here to help at federatedinsurance.com. They've been around since 1904. Owatonna is their headquarters, so they're one of us. They are masochistic Minnesota sports fans, just like all of you. So check them out and see how they can help your business reach the max potential of success. So federatedinsurance.com, and remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. So the 2 names that we have kicked around and that have been sort of floated in reports and whatnot, Miles Turner and the links to, I believe it's the Hornets, I want to say, and the Timberwolves. And now he wouldn't help you on the perimeter, but he's one of the leading shot blockers in the league, and he would add some element of defense. I don't think you'd have to give up D'Lo to get Turner. You'd have to give up something of value, and we can talk about that. But would you, if you're going to go for Ben Simmons, I'm with you. There's people are way overstating how far his stock has fallen. If 6 teams are interested in buying low on him, guess what? You're not buying low. There's going to be a bidding war. So I think even from a salary perspective, I think you probably have to give up, and maybe it's a 3-team trade, but you'd probably have to give up D'Lo if you wanted Ben Simmons for multiple reasons. So, which I think is an upgrade, by the way, personally. And you can tell me I'm an idiot, but no, I would swap D'Lo and then whatever other pieces in a trade for Ben Simmons, or would you rather keep D'Lo if you thought you could get Miles Turner and give up other assets and keep your 3 core young guys together with Miles Turner?
So let's start with the Simmons part of it. I think it's a sliding scale of things that you give up, and then you're going to have to add picks on top of it. The least you could give up for Simmons in terms of like roster pieces right now would be Rubio and Beasley. And on top of that, you'd have to be giving up, multiple probably multiple picks because I actually think Rubio would, and particularly Beasley would make some sense in Philadelphia, but like that's the bottom of the barrel of the outgoing $30 million in salary you got to send to Philly and that sort of deal. You bump it up by making it just D'Lo, right? D'Lo's the guy. I think actually D'Lo and Joel Embiid would make a lot of sense, right? And still on that, you're going to have to attach first-round picks to it because D'Lo's, if Ben Simmons isn't worth his contract, D'Lo's not worth his contract. So we got to find a way to balance that out. Then the most you could give up from the Wolves' perspective, I think, is D'Lo and Beasley, right? Those two things, that would be. Whew. You have to start. That's attractive, to Philly. And now in this situation, you probably don't got to give up as much draft capital. That's the X though in all of these equations where we don't know, and ultimately would determine it. It's like, oh, would it be great to trade Rubio and Beasley for Ben Simmons? Yes, but not if X equals 4 first-round picks. You know what I mean? So that's where it makes the reckless speculation difficult, is because we don't know what that part of the negotiation would be, and it's an important part of it because the Wolves have all of their picks going forward now, right? They have all their picks going forward, and that's their cash in the wallet to, when the next guy becomes made available, that they can put their 4 first-round picks on the table or 3 first-round picks on the table, like we saw for James Harden, Drew Holiday, whatever. Like, I promise you, Gerson Rosas is sitting around waiting to do that when the time comes. So you don't want to start giving away your first-round picks as much as you can, so you can bide your time to go make your James Harden move again somewhere down the line.
Hey, Dane, give me your prediction. What is your best guess about if Gerson is going to add a substantial name and make a move? Who do you think that he would target? If it's not a guy like Ben, who do you think he goes after?
So I think Miles Turner makes a lot of sense, it also makes sense from Indiana's perspective. Like, kind of ran out the end of the road on the Sabonis Turner sort of thing. But I don't think Gerson wants to have 2 bigs. I don't think he does. I mean, Let's look at the pattern of behavior here for 2 full years. Never. He's put string beans. It hasn't even left the opportunity for a coach to put a power forward out there next to him. It's been Covington at the 4. It's been McDaniels at the 4. And those have been the good ones, right? The other guy, it's Josh Okogie. They've been miniature in the front court. So it would just signal such a behavior pivot for Gerson Rosas to go out and get any center and be like, yeah, Cat's going to be the 4. Like, I can't see it. So as far as like big names go, it's a trade, and the most likely player to get traded in this market right now is Ben Simmons. Obviously, Rosas and Moore have a relationship. Like, I don't think it's reckless speculation to talk about Ben Simmons to Minnesota trades. I don't. It's the exact type of thing.
Reckless speculation.
You triggered
it's
man.
The exact thing that Gerson has said since the beginning. Yep. We're going to wait to get talented players, and when that opportunity comes, we're going to jump at it. That was the behavior in Houston. That was the behavior that he said he's had the whole time. Like, they don't make. That's why I don't think John Collins is going to happen either. I don't. I think those aren't the level of player that Rosas has said he's wanting to go after. I think they have their sights set higher if they're going to be paying first-round picks to go get players.
Yeah. And also, one last quick thought here, just in terms of, what teams might be thinking, having big guys on the court. Like, I think teams are going to look at what happened to the Jazz in the playoffs, and like Rudy Gobert, one of the greatest defenders of this generation, like, was lost in that series toward the end, because he just couldn't keep up. Like, he literally couldn't close out. The Clippers go small. He couldn't close out. And I think Miles Turner, would he be a liability in big games, especially when you have him and Cat on the floor? So you bring up some good points.
I think so, man.
Going
I
small.
think Miles Turner moves his feet better than Rudy does. And he's not quite as big. Like, I hear that and I see that. It's really interesting because you look at the regular season here and look at these teams. They're going with 2 bigs. A lot of teams are going with 2 bigs during the regular season and had a lot of success, had a lot of defensive success. Now the playoffs, like, you got to finesse that together, right? You know who might get played off the floor in the playoffs? Cat. Like, I mean,
dude, it's a decent point. I mean, it's a decent. Like, think about that game we saw last night. By the way, that game we saw last night, which was one of the best games we've seen in 5 years in the NBA, without the 2 best players, didn't play. and how fast paced that was moving, and just try to envision Cat going up and down, closing out. Like
Not fouling people.
He would have got put in the spin cycle in that game last
Judd.
night.
That was a good game.
Every game, Judd and I have sat next to each other. Cat has been in foul trouble because Judd's talked to me about it the whole time.
And I think you predict it like when it starts. You're like, okay, here we go again. And sure enough,
Well, it's always too early. It's always too early.
Yes.
And you're like, oh no.
And nobody is more befuddled about how the refs could call a foul on him than Cat. How'd you call that?
True.
Well, dude, you fouled him. But how'd you call that?
I love last night too. We're just like, we're getting guys are bleeding all over the place, and I think I want to say Patrick Beverly might have bled twice in that game last night. Just amazing.
Booker broke his nose, right?
Booker broke
That
his
was
nose.
bad.
Yeah.
That's a hockey move too. Shove some gauze up the nostril
That's
and
right.
come back and
It's
play.
ridiculous, man.
That's a hockey move.
Yeah.
We trade for him. We trade for him. You could have everything. You
Dude,
could have
remember,
everything.
Oh my gosh.
remember a year ago when legitimately conversations were, man, Booker's got it. Booker's out on Phoenix. They're gonna win the title. Like they're literally gonna win the title if Chris Paul comes back. It's wide open right now. But hey, we're gonna let Dane go because we've already kept him way longer than we said we would. But he's been building the Dane Moore NBA podcast for 2 or 3 years now, and it's if you're a Timberwolves fan, I don't know that there's a better Timberwolves podcast out there. So the Dane Moore NBA podcast through the Blue Wire Network. Check him out and follow him on Twitter. Anything else you want to plug while we're here, Dane?
No, man, I'm excited to not do stuff for a while.
Shut it down.
Right? I'll be doing a lot of draft stuff still on the pod, and I like that. Digging into that, even though if it isn't Timberwolves specific. But yeah, the off season is always fun, but it's been a lot of basketball for a while now. I'm excited to not have to watch basketball games every day.
Keep an eye out for that Timberwolves draft preview episode, which will just be 40 minutes of dead silence. It'll be great.
Yeah. And in the second round, and now we're done.
All right,
See you,
Dane. We'll
Dane.
talk soon, man.
Thank you. See you guys.
All right, our friend Dane Moore.
Reckless speculation.
We've got Write That Down predictions coming up on the show. Boys, speaking of NBA playoffs in Minnesota, I know Declan has this clip. Let's do this for just a couple minutes before we get to Write That Down predictions. So listen, Get Up is one of my favorite shows, and sometimes I'll watch Get Up with our guy Greeny, who we are basically executive producers for Get Up. We float him segment ideas, and he
Loves
steals them and
reckless
stuff.
speculation.
And sometimes, Get Up will finish, and I'll still have first take on. And I got a Stephen A. I can listen to a Stephen A. rant and be entertained, right? I must have missed this earlier this week because I woke up this morning and some people were pointing out this clip on Twitter. So let's roll the clip and react to it.
Worried about these destinations that you possibly have to go to for the NBA Finals. I mean, you really want to be in Milwaukee? Is that where you want to be?
Last year it was Miami or LA. He's heading between Phoenix and Milwaukee
You know
now.
what?
A lot of segments going direct, right?
You know what I just thought about, which is actually kind of funny? The only 2 times, the one time I didn't go to the Super Bowl, it was Minnesota. And this is the first year. I'm not sure what our plans are for first take, but I don't think we're going, Max and I, we'll see. And it's going to be terrible cities. I mean, good karma for me on that.
Terrible city.
Hold on,
Probably
Molly.
didn't mean
Hold on,
that.
Molly.
She meant
I mean, what are...
Max
Yeah.
trying to
Max
reel
with
it
the
back
backpedal.
in.
I know
She
the bag's
didn't
like,
mean
oh,
that.
oh,
Well, no, actually,
She didn't
said
mean that. No,
exactly
that
what
was
she said.
literally what she meant. That is
Yeah.
exactly who she is in that
my
moment
gosh.
right
Come
there.
on,
And
dude.
all of them too. Like, so I saw that, and my first thought was, why? Like, what is the value of publicly crapping on an entire region of sports fans? Also, like we were talking about this off microphone. You get to think about this. You're presumably doing your dream jobs, right? Like you're talking about and covering sports for a living. Not that there can't be stressors, like is every day going to be just like head in the clouds? No, like it can be a grind and there's stressors and pressures and stuff. But like ultimately, you're getting paid, and in the cases of the people you just saw on TV, very handsomely to cover and watch sports and travel to other cities to watch sports. Why would you not even, let's say you don't like Milwaukee as much as Miami, right? There's still some fun things to do in Milwaukee, and guess what? You're being paid to travel, to watch, and cover sports. Just be grateful and enjoy whatever it is that you can enjoy in those cities instead of crapping on them and us on national television.
Do you know
Come
what, though?
on.
Do you know what? it's never bothered me, and here's why. I don't care. I honestly don't care if you like where I live. It's like this. Hockey. A lot of people hate it. That's cool. Go ahead and hate it. I love it. But I'm also guilty of something too. So I'd be a hypocrite if I was like, they shouldn't trash our fine city. I mean, I think Houston, Texas is a cesspool. I hate it. It's a terrible city. A lot of people like it. It's awful.
Judd's doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, but I'm
saying,
saying, but I mean, I've said this for years. It's a complete cesspool. Atlanta, guess what? I don't like it. A lot of people love it. It's a great place to party. So, like, if you don't like us, that's fine. That's fine. Buckhead is outstanding. Buckhead's outstanding, Dick. You would love Buckhead.
We imported the entertainment from Atlanta to the Love Boat for the Vikings bye-week party.
But I'm saying, you know what? I mean, these guys want to go to big cities. They don't want to come here or go to Milwaukee. That's fine. That's cool. I just don't care.
Oh my God, dude.
I don't know. When she literally calls an entire region full of terrible cities, she says terrible cities. Like, well, these are also like ESPN targeted, measured markets that you're trying to build an audience in. And you can see those wheels turning with Max. He's like, oh God, I got a radio show that's syndicated in Minneapolis and probably Milwaukee.
And her problem is, so I think it's very fair to say I skipped a Super Bowl, right, in February, which I guess I don't even blame her for. Yeah. But like, you can't make the comparison to Minneapolis in February and Minneapolis in June, or July. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference there. So, but I just don't. I just, you know what? Hate what I love. In fact, you know what? Good, because then you're not going to bother me.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to bother you anyways. You basically just sit in your home and drink IPAs and then stumble down to Bunnies and
stay out of my. Are you kidding? I just go to the liquor store down the street now, get a 6-pack and come back and drink it. I'm done with bars. You know what? Nah. The pandemic's taught me a lot of things.
Done with bars, man. That's too bad.
The pandemic's taught me. You know what? Not restaurants and bars, but I'm just saying, going and sitting at a bar now, to me, it's just not the same anymore.
Oh no!
And plus, there's the Delta variant now, and I guess my Johnson & Johnson vaccine might not cover it.
I knew that was gonna mess with your head. You're gonna, This.
I did some research on it. I actually did some research on it last night, and it looks like it's not. They haven't decided what the variant does to the certain vaccines yet. But I'm saying I'm not going to test it. I'm staying home. So you know what, Molly Kiram, Stephen A. hate us. I'm cool with that.
I still love Stephen A, even if he hates us.
Stephen A, man. I cannot wait, and I think it might be a disaster, but it's going to be great fun. I can't wait till Stephen A is sort of, quote, forced to and tries to embrace talking about hockey.
Oh, he will.
No, I think he's in. He's already doing it.
Yeah, he's in.
Right, but I'm saying it's going to be like
it's
next year.
They are not forcing him. He wants to do it.
Good.
Like, he has takes on hockey. It is. He's already been on his. I think he's got an ESPN Plus like bonus show.
Yep.
And I saw a clip floating around of him just ranting about the Maple Leafs or something.
It's like, that one too. It's just great. It's just, I don't know. It's funny.
All right, we'll collect ourselves here, and we got some write that down predictions and an accountability session in this flyover country that we call the Midwest.
Stay away. Yeah, keep going. Los Angeles, just keep going. Keep that jet going.